start with an artist that we have covered once before, Joni Mitchell. We did cover Blue in full format earlier, very early in season 2. And Matt, why don't you go ahead and run the numbers? I believe you are actually the person who's going to start us this segment too, if I remember correctly.
Well, I'm just going to go right into it then. So this is number 110 on the Rolling Stone Top 500 list. On Best Ever Albums, it comes in at number 132 in the 1970s.
Matt, what is it, by the way? Because I feel like we haven't said what it is.
We didn't talk about it. I'm sorry. It's Court and Spark. This is the album that came out after Blue, I believe. So this is kind of running in line with our timeline here. But 132 in the 1970s on Best Ever Albums, number 6 in 1974. And number 567 of all time, it is Joni Mitchell's second highest rated album on Best Ever Albums, behind Blue. And I got to say, my review is not going to be all that much different than my review of Blue, which is nonplussed. I am not a fan of this record, or Joni Mitchell really much at all, I think, at this point. There were some elements of this that I actually liked a little bit better. She does bring in more of a full band on some songs, so you have some drums and some bass and some guitar, which electric guitar. Not all, like a couple of songs. I think tracks 2 and 3, Help Me and Free Men in Paris, both use that. But most of the songs were kind of back in the tradition of her acoustic guitar playing. Either that was the central instrument or the piano. And I struggle with Joni Mitchell. I struggle with her, not just her voice, but the way that she sings her lyrics. It's just almost like a free-form type of singing that's not really... Like I said this before, and I'll say it again. I feel like she's trying to throw in too many words in a short, frame within the piece of music. She's singing more than I think that more words than it feels like she should, and that's part of her style. And it's certainly unique, and I think it's maybe one of the things that people like about her. I personally don't really find it appealing. I feel it a little overbearing and a little bit too much. I think the melody suffers in her songs, partly because of that, but also just because there's not really a lot of hooks. There's not really a lot of melody. There's not a lot of edge either. So without one of those three, and it's not like strong beats or anything like that. So, so for me, it's a little difficult to, get amped about her, to really, enjoy. It's more produced, I think, than Blue, and definitely. I think that the production is a notable 70s type production, with more strings and, orchestration that kind of falls in line with 70s production. So, which is something that is kind of hit or miss for me. And at this point, at this album, it's a bit of a miss. Actually, I was kind of surprised Raised on Robbery was she did a rock and roll song. So that was that was a little different. So there's moments in here that I was like, okay, I like the fact that she's trying something a little different. She's mixing it up. And there were some parts in here that I think I did like, but overall it's just, it doesn't really do a whole lot for me. I find it at parts annoying, I don't want to take anything away from her talent, because clearly she's a very revered artist, particularly amongst musicians and really good songwriters. And, this is just maybe something that I don't get, and maybe, that's just what it is. But I don't really feel like I want to listen to this stuff. I feel like if I want to listen to singer-songwriter stuff, there's plenty of other areas and artists that I'm going to go to. But my guess is a lot of those artists were probably inspired by Joni Mitchell. So again, like I've said before, I'm glad she's out there. It's just I don't think I really need to listen to this. I think I'm okay. So a little bit of a thumbs down for me.
So just a little fact-checking here. We talked about Blue on episode 12 of this season, so not too far back. And this album is actually 2 after Blue, from what I see. Is it? And okay. It's 3 years later. So point being that I heard different stuff in here, and I think she is trying something different. I think her voice sounds stronger, and it sounded different. That may be the production for me, but it's almost like deeper or more resonant. And also, I heard a lot of orchestration listening to this. I feel like there's whole orchestras behind her at times through the production, and you hear all sorts of different instruments on this: saxophone, bass, horns, flutes, maybe a harmonica or something at some point. And I think, and it's still her and the guitar, but with all of that behind her, it sounds different. And I think she is trying to branch out musically with not only that production, but with the styles of different styles of songs. Like Matt brings up, there is an upbeat rocking song with Raised on a Robbery. I think she's got some kind of jazzy elements to some songs like Trouble Child and Twisted. And I think she is trying to flesh out kind of what she can do on this album. She's got backing singers also on Down to You. So I think she is really trying to, or the production is trying to make her more than just her and the guitar. And at times it almost sounds like she's like a female Crosby, Stills and Nash with the way that this production is and the sounds are. And at the end of the day, it's still Joni Mitchell, and it's still all about her songs and her lyrics, or the stories that she tells within her songs. And this is no exception. So I think, if you are into the stories she tells, if you are a ex-boyfriend of hers, you're going to have a song about yourself. And that has carried through to today with like Taylor Swift and all the other female singer-songwriters that have a career and are trying to, write about their lives in different ways. And I think that's what Joni Mitchell does, and she does it really well. There wasn't a big like hit or like standout song for me on this album. I thought there'd maybe be a single or something, but nothing really hit home for me on that front. But overall, I enjoyed the album. I think I maybe liked it a little more than Blue just because of the different stuff that was going on in the background. But yeah, it's Joni Mitchell through and through. It's just Joni Mitchell with some added layers onto it, I think.
Gotcha. Well, I'm surprised neither of you guys mentioned the piano, because unlike Blue, which was mostly Joni Mitchell and guitar work, and there's guitar here, this one is heavy on Joni Mitchell playing the piano. And as a result, to me, the vibe is very different of this album, and I'm right in between both of you guys. I think this is two albums. There's the first 6 tracks, but then in the 7 it starts to shift, where it blends together, and not necessarily in a good way. It just seems there's these slice of life stories that Joni Mitchell is telling me. The musicianship kind of stays the same with small twists. Like Josh said, there's some dialogue at times, there's some background singing, but for the most part it's piano interspersed with some acoustic guitar. And that part of the album kind of just washed over me, not leaving a mark. It was inoffensive, but it didn't stand out to me. There were lyrics that I recognized as being interesting lyrics, but at the end of the day, I mean, Joni Mitchell's writing about two things. She's writing about love affairs, usually fleeting ones. Like she writes a lot about like bursts of passion and one night stands and stuff. And I don't say that judgingly, but like you can't, like we've listened to 2 albums and that was a theme that came up quite a bit. It's sort of like I was here and then I kind of got overwhelmed and I made love. There's a song on this that's about a one night stand. There's an interesting song. I'm trying to remember the name. It was right around the middle of the album.
Car on the Hill.
I think it's Down to You, if I remember correctly. Yep, that is like it's basically like her reflecting on a one night stand the night before. But it was a really interesting, very feminine way to write about it. And often, it's usually like a swaggering thing of that. So I really did enjoy that. But once again, the musicianship was not drawing me in. I will say that around track 7, when it gets to Just Like This Train, there starts to be a little bit more diversity in that song that kind of caught my attention. And then really Raised on a Robbery, I'm like, I like this little gem at the end right here. It rocks out a little bit. It's almost a little bit funky, to be quite honest. And I was like, that's a nice little gem at the end. And it's interesting because later when I went back on it, I really liked the guitar work. And you know who that was, guys? That was Robbie Robertson. Who was playing the guitar in that album.
I got an Eagles feel from that song, like kind of like a country-esque Eagles.
I actually liked it better than the Eagles songs that we did before. To be quite honest, I enjoyed it, and I really like. And Josh mentioned both of them, Trouble Child and Twisted, are tracks 10 and 11. So Raised on Robbery is at 9, Trouble Child at 10, and Twisted 11. They have some jazz, standard jazz classics, more layered musicianship, and I really thought the album finished strong, and I kind of was thinking to myself, I really wish the album had picked up on this vein and a little bit more experimental vein, because I was starting to feel it a little bit. I will mention that the early part of the album does, as we said before in the Blue album, pretend a certain type of female singer-songwriter rock that's coming later, and it really, when you hear it in this moment, it stands out because you can see people listening to the album and taking their own twist on it with their own voice and their own lyrics. But yeah, for me, in the middle, maybe a little bit down, just because the length of time where the album blended without making a mark on me was a little longer than I would have liked for an album that was truly trending up. But there were things on here that caught my attention more than Blue musically, and it was a very similar album, maybe if not thematically. The songs were very similar, just clearly a different part of Joni Mitchell's life. Blue is what, 71?
Yeah.
And this is 73?
74.
74, yeah, so she's lived 3 years between this and gone out and toured this stuff. Not that she wasn't playing live before, but it does seem a little bit more like someone who's lived a little bit more life, as opposed to just... She certainly wasn't naive in Blue, but she was, I feel like, more of a free spirit, whereas here she has that free spirit, but she's also a little more world-weary in this one. And she's also writing as other people besides herself at times. Raised on Robbery is pretty clearly... like she's singing as like a prostitute, so it's like themes that you can tell she's writing universal themes, right? So some of them might be things she felt, but like her character, she's doing the embodying the character type of songwriter on that one. So I thought that was a really interesting song lyrically too. I think this would have been an interesting one for me to listen to a second time to see if I would have caught some stuff.
That's against the rules, according to Matt. So.
I didn't do it. And I didn't.
So you
like
can
I said,
after this. You're just not supposed to before your takes, Josh.
And the things that came out that were interesting in terms of, for this, I don't do a big bio, but I do go to All Music and I do go to Wikipedia just to browse to see if there's anything out. And Crosby and Nash are on this album. Cheech and Chong are speaking voices on this.
I thought I heard them at the end there.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Robbie Robertson, like I said, played on this one. And the funniest story that came out of this one was that apparently Joni Mitchell's very good friends with David Geffen. In fact, the third song on this album, not that I had any idea, Free Man in Paris, is about David Geffen. So if you were wondering. So apparently she played this for her studio boss, or label boss, David Geffen, and Bob Dylan was in the room, during which time he fell asleep while it was playing. So Matt, he might have had a similar view that you had. But this, who didn't fall asleep? The Grammy voters, because they voted this Album of the Year, and Help Me won Record of the Year, and Joni Mitchell won Best Female Pop Vocal. And so I mean, this swept pretty much the two big categories, and I think it didn't. What is there? There's Song and Record of the Year, right?
Yeah.
Inexplicably. So this one, Album and Record and Best Female. So that's three of the big four. So
people love Joni Mitchell. Yeah, and actually, I think that did he date Joni Mitchell, David Geffen?
Did he date her? I don't know that.
No, I thought I might have, because I remember reading about her. Maybe seeing something in a documentary about Joni when I covered Joni Mitchell. I thought I saw more about David Geffen there, but I do remember them being close, at least.
We have long established that Joni Mitchell has that good, because she, by her own writing, right? You know what I mean? Is able to stumble into a lot of very passionate relationships. So good on Joni, man. Being ahead of her time and being there. I respect someone who's that, that interesting to that many people. That's a real skill. Not many people have it.
Yeah.
So.
Matt, did you say before or previous episode what her highest ranked album is on Best Ever Albums?
Oh, it's Blue.
It's got to be Blue. Yeah,
Blue,
it's got to be.
Blue is pretty much it's the 77th best album of all time.
Yeah.
22nd in the 70s. So yeah, Blue is
there's
her magnum opus, Josh, is what that is.
Well, there's a couple we haven't covered yet that are like in revisionist thinking that we're going to cover, right? That are
I think we have
now,
2 more to cover at least.
Well, and those are the ones that are starting to get the revisionist thinking of, these are the hidden masterpiece type ones. So I'll be interested to see, what the evolution is of Joni Mitchell.
And she did. I
Yeah.
do remember when I watched the documentary, she does definitely go in different directions. It's not like she just stays on that acoustic piano singer-songwriter thing. She gets a full band. She does a little bit more of the world music, electric stuff. So yeah, I think probably, and this certainly, it kind of gives you a little bit of a hint of where she's going with that stuff. And I did, that was a nicer part of this, the variety. For me, it's just that a lot of it just didn't land as much as I wanted it to. But yeah, maybe we're going to hear more, different things later on, because I think we've got Hejra, that's from 1976.
Yep.
And then there's the Hissing Summer of Lawns. I think we cover that too. That's 75. So
the Hissing of Summer Lawns.
Hissing
it?
of Summer Lawns. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, misspoke there. So I think we do those two. So they're kind of right around this time. I mean, this is it's 74, 75, 76. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where she goes with that. Maybe I'll like those better.
Maybe she goes electric.
Yeah, Jody goes electric.
Yeah.
She does do well with space. I have to give the piano at times. There were times when she would play a piece that caught my attention, and then she would let it breathe, and sometimes that doesn't always work for me. But a couple of her guitar parts I found, or piano parts, I found very interesting that she would play with a lot of space, as we talked about in the Pink Floyd thing, and noticeable, but it didn't lose me. So I will dap her up a little bit there, that I was impressed by how long I stayed in.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing for me, just because this is kind of something that I gravitate towards, the singer-songwriter thing. It's something about her style that just didn't really jive with me. So but no, she's talented, and freaking people love her. But that was part of the other thing too. I was like, when I looked at the Rolling Stone list, I was like, so this is number 110 of all time? I had another one of those, really?
You got to stop doing that too.
I know,
I feel like
I
that
know,
disproportionately influences.
Yeah, you got to do that after.
But
Yeah.
when I learned about it afterwards, because I was looking, because after I listened to it, I was like, all right, let me see where this ranks in Rolling Stone. And I kept looking. I started at 500, and I kept going. I'm like, is it even in here? Did John do one of these things where he doesn't, we're covering something that's not in Rolling Stone? And I kept going, and I was like, wait a minute, 110. So no, I did. I did learn about that after listening to it. So
yeah, but that's still, I think, does influence your take before you get it. I think it really. I don't know if it does you any justice, Matt, to see that.
No, it can't, because if I'm like, it's okay, and then I see it's highly ranked, that'll make me look at it more negatively. So
just like what we were saying last episode, how it influences, the canon influences our opinions.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, in fairness, I don't know if mine is influenced as much, because me, I'm a surly jerk, and I'll you know what I mean? I'll sometimes be like, I don't believe that. These experts, what do they know? I'm smarter. And then people are like, listen to this idiot. And then there's like 2 or 3 people like, yeah. So, and luckily a couple of them are in YouTube who appreciate
Are we experts yet? We've done how many episodes? When do we get to be experts?
I feel like kind of we have to be at the end of the 6 decades, right? Just by the sheer amount of stuff we'll have listened to at that point. There's only so dumb we can be at that point.
So we're not there yet, you're saying? We're not quite experts yet?
People are self-proclaimed experts on everything, so I'm an expert more than a lot of people.
I'm an expert of CTS.
I don't really want to be an expert, because when you're an expert, you start to think that you have, you close off the world a little bit. And I kind of like the idea that I'm always a little bit of a novice.
I just like influencing public opinion. That's all.
Okay, well.
With my takes, my hot takes.
With the takes.
There you go. There you go.
Well,
everybody. Why don't you let us know? Is Josh influencing your takes?
Yeah.
Well, he's got 3 more tonight.
@gmail.com. Yeah, exactly.
You got it. Thanks for that teaser in there, Matt. Well, we've got other singer-songwriters tonight, so you'll have other chances to see what makes or does not make these